Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 255th episode of the Simple Sophisticate. And welcome to the last week or few days of spring or fall for my Australian and New Zealand and everyone who's in the Southern Hemisphere listeners. We are savoring spring here in Bend, Oregon. We've had delightful weather, a little bit of thunder and rain showers, some fantastic sunshiny days, and needless to say, the long days have just been absolutely relished. I hope the same has been for you as well. This week's episode is inspired by last week's Petit Plaisir. And you may remember if you tuned into 254, the episode 254, that the Petit Plaisir last week was Daily Rituals, Women at Work by Mason Curry. Now, as I was reading this book, I annotated it like crazy from beginning to end. I was having a conversation with it at points, saying, oh my gosh, that's what I feel like, and that's what fills me up too, or that's what works for me. Sure was nice to read some artists and other creatives and how they go through their daily routines and thus make them rituals because it's something they find great productivity out of, creativity comes forth, and it just works for them. And so what I decided to do today, because I know I've talked a lot about daily rituals and daily routines. In fact, a recent review of this podcast said she talks about the same thing every week. Well, first of all, this is a Simple Sophisticate, and it is a theme niche regarding living a life of quality over quantity. We do talk about a lot of different things, but I think it's a great reminder to focus on the everyday, to focus on what works every single day. So if you're looking for a lot of variety, you probably won't find it on this podcast. But if you're looking to dive deeper into how to live a better everyday life, this is the podcast for you. And that's really what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about 34 inspiring daily rituals to ignite your creativity. And this is the caveat. Maybe thinking, but I don't work in a creative field, Shannon. I don't work in a creative job. But this is the thing, and we talked about this in a post a few years ago, and I'll provide a link on the show notes. All of us are creative. We all have the capacity to be creative. Our creativity is going to be unique to us. It's not a special skill that only a few get. It's just that a few tap into it, embrace it, exercise it, and continue to let it flourish. But everyone's mode or medium of creativity, I should say, medium there, is unique to them. And the creativity may come in the form of an illustration, but it doesn't have to. It could come in the form of how you live your life, how you engage with people, how you spend your days. So that definition of creativity is very abstract and will be unique to each of us. And so thus today is about you and the daily routines that you can turn into rituals to make you savor and enjoy the everyday all the more. But before we get into that list, this week's Petit Plaisir is a simple, delicious recipe that is perfect for warm summer evenings. It is cool, it is refreshing, and you'll be surprised that you love it. In fact, actually, I shouldn't say that. You might not be surprised that you're going to love it. I was surprised that I loved it, and I've been making it ever since. So I'll share more about that recipe and how to make it at the end of this week's episode. But now back to the topic of today. As I mentioned, we talk quite often about the importance of routine and how by having a routine, we actually are setting ourselves free, especially our minds. And it is in that vein that Mason Curry's book, Daily Rituals, Women at Work, which is his second, the first one was simply titled Daily Rituals, that he focuses on this idea of the routine, making them rituals so that the mind can find, bring forth, or discover the creativity that is trying to find a way into our lives. So this second book focuses entirely on women at work, sharing the routines and preferences of creative women who have lived and created over the past 4 centuries. He introduces us to 143 women, and I thoroughly enjoyed his second book, even more than the first, which I also found great inspiration. It was refreshing to see so many women living their lives in a variety of different ways, but all in which they discovered ways that worked well for them and the craft they most loved, enabling it to come forth to be shared with the world. Now, not all the ideas that are shared in this book resonated with me. In fact, I kind of picked and chose which chapters I wanted to read because he sections the chapters up into, for example, an abnormal life. All right. So he has a bunch of people that do things that are maybe way out of the ordinary, but he also includes topics such as boredom and suffering, a balloon, a spaceship, a submarine in a closet, or deadly determination, or simply oysters and champagne. Guess who's in that list? Miss Coco Chanel. So based on what you're looking for and based on the type of theme that may speak to you, he's organized them in that way, which I think is actually very creative if we're talking about creativity. All right, so let's get into this list. Some of the 35 things I'm going to talk about will speak to you, but not all. Some of what we share today, of the 35 ideas, will speak to you, and some will not. All of us function and thrive in different ways. So what I've done is I've shared an idea, and then I'll share the woman who inspired it or from which I found this idea in the book. You can find this entire list on the show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 255. Here we go. Number 1, since we're talking about the beginning of this list, begin the day with a hot glass of lemon water. Sounds so simple, something we've actually talked about here on the blog and the podcast. But designer Elsa Schiaparelli woke up at 8 a.m., sipped lemon juice and water and a cup of tea for breakfast as she read the papers, handled private correspondence, made telephone calls, and gave the menus of the day to the cook. Now, we may not all have a cook to give the menus of the day to, but we all can begin the day with a simple ritual that wakes up the body, helps flush out toxins, and just wakes our brains up. For many of the women in this book, and the list is very long, mornings were their most creative times of the day, and they protected that time of day. So whatever time of day works best for you, protect it. And this is what helped her jumpstart the day for the better. That's number 1. Number 2, wake up early. Speaking of waking up early, that is our second one, if that is when your creativity is most fruitful. So Octavia Butler states, I get up between 3 or 4 in the morning because that's my best writing time. Now, we may not want to wake up that early, but don't feel bad. If you wake up, you're rested, and you're ready to go. Go for it. I think sometimes we get it stuck in our brains that there's a certain time of the morning that's okay to wake up. Otherwise, something's wrong with us. No, figure out what works for you. I am a early riser as well, 5 o'clock, and I'm usually rustling about. Now, granted, I have dogs, and I know some of you guys have dogs, and if we have kids, that may change things too. If we have an early job that gets us up, we may not like getting up in the morning, but maybe figure out what actually works for you. But don't think just because you wake up at 4 a.m. and you are rested, that you have to stay there. Use that fresh energy and create what comes forth. So that's number 2. Wake up early. Number 3, if spending less time with people fuels your creativity, embrace it fully. This is another quote from Octavia Butler in 1998. She states, I enjoy people best if I can be alone much of the time. I used to worry about it because my family worried about it. And I finally realized this is the way I am. That's that. I appreciate her forthrightness. And while she doesn't say she totally avoids people, I think this will be unique to certain temperaments. Not all of us will feel this way. But for me, I'm the same way in so many respects. However, I do enjoy the company of people that I sincerely cherish and feel safe with. But I don't need to be around them all the time. And now for people who need to be around people all the time who thoroughly enjoy that, this makes no sense to them. But I think this is a reminder that all of us are different. Put ourselves in someone else's shoes and remember that we, again, will live and thrive in different environments. So that's number 3. Now, as I mentioned, Coco Chanel is included in this book, and she kicks off number 4. Number 4, If traditional holidays don't work for you, create your own or dive into what you love on those holidays. So Coco Chanel was noted for working 6 days a week and dreaded Sundays and holidays. As she told one confidant, that word vacation makes me sweat. Now, I think this is something to think about whichever side of the aisle you are on this topic, because if we really enjoy the vacations or the holidays in the traditional manner that a lot of other people do or are going to partake in them, that's fantastic. But we have to recognize that that may not work for everybody, and it's okay to enjoy them differently. I am straddling both sides on this one. For the last 3 years, I've spent Thanksgiving on my own, and I've thoroughly loved it because it's a week off that I get from school, and I either tend to travel or I have a big event with my writing business or with the books launch or things like that. So I take it and I use it for what I love doing and what works for me. But at the same time, I also enjoy different traditional holidays. During the snowy months of the year in December, it's nice to have all those different traditions that my family used to partake in, and I appreciate them. But we're all different, and so I think it's important to embrace what works for us. Number 5, greet the day in a habitual way that sets the tone for a great day. This idea of habitual is liberating because it doesn't ask your brain to think in a different way. You've habituated it. It doesn't have to exert more energy. And so then it is free for ideas to come, for ideas to introduce themselves to you. And I think that's the gift that routine and thus ritual can be. So that's number 5. Greet the day in a habitual way that sets the tone that you want. 6, live your ideas, don't talk about them. From choreographer Martha Graham. She states, people would sit around and talk about things constantly. I never really went in for that. If you talk something out, you will never do it. You can spend every evening talking with your friends and colleagues about your dreams, but they will remain just that, dreams. I think she said all that we need to say on that topic. Number 6, live your ideas, don't talk about them. 7, keep a small journal next to your bed to capture ideas. This is from American poet Edna St. Vincent Millay. I always have a notebook and pencil on the table at my bedside. I may wake up in the middle of the night with something I want to put down. There were a handful, if not more, women who stated this. They have a notebook beside their bed just in case they wake up in the middle of the night, before they go to bed, or when they wake up in the morning. And I, too, have something beside my bed. I could not agree more with this. I recently started doing this, and I've captured ideas that would have quickly left my brain had I not done that. So that's number 7. Number 8, if you work at home, carve out a part of the day to get out of the house and just absorb inspiration or let go of the day completely. From Frida Kahlo, she says, quote, in the nocturnal evening, I get the hell out to some movie or damn play, and I come back and sleep like a rock. Number 9, figure out the ingredients that are needed to let the ideas find you. So think of yourself a bit of as a recipe, so to speak. And it's noted that Agnes de Mille would need, in order to create new choreography, a pot of tea, a walking space, privacy, and an idea. She figured out the recipe that worked for her. Sipping, walking, having time and space to just let the ideas introduce themselves. That's number 9. Number 10, don't feel obligated to keep the same schedule when you are in the middle of creating your art or craft. Margaret Bourke-White required long periods of solitude to write, with as few interruptions as possible. In an interview with a life photographer, Nina Lean remembers after asking her if she would have lunch with her, that she told me she was writing a book and there was no hope of a lunch for several years. And I know she's probably not exaggerating. When the creative muse hits you and you're able to, you just keep using the time that you have to get it out, to get it down on paper, to get it out to the world, to make sure that it doesn't leave you. So it's probably not that far-fetched, if not dead on accurate, as to what she needs. So number 10, don't feel obligated to keep the same schedule when you are in the middle of creating your art or craft. Number 11, don't feel bad for loving your work and working on what you love beyond the traditional work hours. The quote is from Russian-born painter and sculptor Marie Bashkirtseff. And she states, everything seems petty and uninteresting. Everything except my work. As much as we hear that Americans work all the time, work, there's a difference between getting lost in what you do and finding an innate love for it and passion for it that fuels you versus working constantly to make sure that you have enough or more money, and thus ruining relationships, or what the life you're trying to support with that money. I know there's a difference between the two. Now, we have to replenish ourselves, but that's the thing. Sometimes our work does replenish us. That's exactly what we need to do. And so that's important to honor that. That's number 11. Number 12, do something during the day that it's relaxing and keeps you present. This is from English actress Gertrude Lawrence. She states, I relax before lunch by arranging flowers. When these are all beautifully arranged in bowls and vases, it's usually lunchtime. So this is again what works for her. But what is it that you can do that fully grabs your attention and focus? You're not worried about coming up with a new idea. You're not worried about finishing an idea or project. And basically just telling your mind to relax, taking that regularly. That's number 12. Number 13, have a studio or space of your own to create, in which to create. This is from Agnes Martin. She says, the most important thing is to have a studio and establish and preserve its atmosphere. Find a space where you can create. Find a space where you can be without being edited. Find a space that inspires you. And it may be a place in your home. It may be an office space that you rent or work in, but it could maybe be someplace that you don't have to pay a cent for. Maybe it's a certain trail or a certain place outdoors or a certain venue. I mean, everyone's going to be different, but figure out what that is. Because if you're a writer or if you're someone who does a different type of craft where you don't have to create something tangible on the spot, you don't need necessarily a studio. But the idea still is important to have a space of your own in which to create. Number 14, if you love solitude, embrace it. This is from poet Catherine Ann Porter. But it is, as Yeats said, a solitary, sedentary trade. And I did a lot of gardening and cooked my own food and listened to music. And of course, I would read. I was really very happy. I can live a solitary life for a month at a time, and it does me good. So I think this is important. Again, it's all about getting to know yourself. But if you need and find great moments of creativity when you're on your own, then don't feel that you have to justify it. Just that's what works for you, period. That's your justification. If you do need some kind of justification, I guess I should say, it's enough. You know what works for you. No one else can know that better than you. Number 15, trust your intuition as to what works best for you. So on that same line of doing what works best for you, this is from English painter Bridget Riley. She states, it's not right if it doesn't feel right. No matter what I'm saying here, if what I'm suggesting doesn't feel right, dismiss it, ignore it. Do what works best for you. And that is where you will blossom. That's where you're going to find your rejuvenation and your refueling. You won't be depleted. You won't be drained. Embrace that. If you haven't found that yet, keep searching. You will find it. I don't know when you'll find it, but as long as you're searching, you're going to find out, and you're going to figure it out if you're paying attention to yourself, figuring out where you find your flow. And that's number 15. Number 16, find regular time to just read what you love. Rachel Whitehead, an English sculptor, would at some point stop for lunch, and she'd often spend an hour of the day reading, sitting in a comfortable chair away from her desk. And when we say read, this is for you. This is for pleasure. This is to, again, kind of like that idea of arranging flowers that the English actress was doing in previous points. A way to get your mind out of trying to solve problems, out of trying to create ideas, because when we open our minds up and turn off the have-tos, that's when the ideas actually often come. So that's number 16. Number 17, establish a flexible routine to work with what you need. This is the morning routine of American artist Andrea Zittel, and she shared this in 2017. Morning routine. Zittel feeds her chickens, waters plants, and performs other outdoor chores before meditating, taking a shower, making breakfast, and getting dressed. In the winter, Zittel's morning schedule reverses. She meditates, showers, and eats breakfast first. Then, once the sun has raised the outdoor temperature, she heads out on her hike and does chores. It's really all about establishing a flexible routine, she states. Again, find what works for you, stick to it, and enjoy it. So, I've shared half the list so far, and maybe some of these have resonated with you. Maybe some just sound interesting. Either way, I hope it's inspired you so far to get to know yourself, have patience with yourself, and eventually you will figure out what works best for you. Now, I'll be right back with the rest of this list, but first, I'd like to introduce you to this week's sponsors. The Simple Sophisticate is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of amazing classes covering dozens of creative and entrepreneurial skills. You can take classes in everything from photography and creative writing to design, productivity, and more. So whether you're returning to a long-time passion project, challenging yourself to get outside your comfort zone, or simply exploring something new, Skillshare has classes for you. In fact, if you love the writing of Roxane Gay, she has a class that she's teaching writing skills. If you love cooking, there are oodles of cooking classes. Of course, there's how to make a French macaron. Wait, that's the president. A French macaroon. There are classes on how to cook, all the different fares that you can imagine. So many different options, so many different things to pick and choose from. Be sure to go and explore and join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for the Simple Sophisticate listeners. You will get 2 months free. That's right. Skillshare is offering the Simple Sophisticate listeners 2 months of unlimited access to thousands of classes for free. To sign up, go to Skillshare.com/simple. Again, go to Skillshare.com/simple to start your 2 months now. That's Skillshare.com/simple. If you have considered hiring or visiting a counselor, BetterHelp may be just what you're looking for. BetterHelp offers online counseling that is there for you, where you get the opportunity to connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private online environment, which makes it very convenient. Now you can get help on your own time and at your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus chat and text with your therapist. Licensed professional counselors are available in all sorts of topics such as self-esteem, trauma, sleeping, relationships. The list is varied. Anything that you share is confidential, and if you are not happy with your counselor for any reason, you can request a new one at any time, no additional charge. Available on desktop, mobile app, Android, and iOS apps, schedule video and phone sessions to fit your schedule. And best of all, it's truly an affordable option. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, you have the opportunity to get 10% off your first month with the discount code SIMPLE. So why not get started today? Go to betterhelp.com/simple and simply fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs and get matched with a counselor you'll love. That's betterhelp.com/simple. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Simple Habit. Simple Habit offers hundreds of meditations available for free, and thousands are available with the premium option, offering a variety of different voice and styles to fit what you need when it comes to meditation. It is absolutely possible with Simple Habit. Simple Habit offers practical meditations to help with specific problems in your life, such as parenting, sleep, anxiety. It's not just teaching you to meditate for the sake of meditation or that it's good for you, but it's also convenient. They have short meditation sessions that can be consumed in 5 minutes, but also lengthy ones if that is what you prefer. You don't need to be sitting in the lotus position with your eyes closed in a completely silent room. You could be walking, you could be doing dishes, you can be doing whatever it is that you need to be doing and still meditate. With more than 65,000 5-star reviews and having received the 2018 Google Play Award winner for Standout Well-Being app, Simple Habit is now the #1 ranked meditation keyword in the iOS App Store. And as a Simple Sophisticate listener, receive the premium subscription at 30% off. But that is only available to the first 50 listeners. So be sure to sign up today. Simply visit simplehabit.com/simple to get this offer. That's simplehabit.com/simple to receive 30% off premium subscription for the first 50 listeners. And now let's get back to the second half of the list for daily rituals that will ignite your creativity. Number 18, don't quit trying to live the life you wish to live. I want to share with you a quote from Susan Sontag. She writes, "It never occurred to me that I couldn't live the life I wanted to lead. It never occurred to me that I could be stopped. I had this very simple view that the reason people who start out with ideals or aspirations don't do what they dream of doing when they're young is because they quit. I thought, well, I won't quit." Simply put, makes sense. Number 18, don't quit trying to live the life you wish to live. It's possible. Just have patience and perseverance. Number 19, try a crossword puzzle like Joan Mitchell. Maybe that awakens your brain, but also focuses your attention. Number 20, determine what view in your studio, sanctuary, or workspace is most productive for inspiration. So, for example, Kate Chopin, the American writer, states, "Where do I write? In a Morris chair beside the window where I can see a few trees and a patch of sky more or less blue." In fact, other writers shared that they couldn't be looking out a window because it was too distracting. So it really depends on you. If you're constantly looking outside and not doing your work, probably not the view that's going to work for you. But if it is, then make sure you find that view all the time or as often as possible. Number 21, end the day with a signal to your mind to relax. From Russian prima ballerina Anna Pavlova, she writes, "During the performance, I drink water with breadcrumbs, which is most refreshing. After the ballet, I have a bath as soon as possible. Then I go out to dinner, as by that time I have an unmerciful hunger. When I get home, I drink tea." So everyone's going to be different. Not all of us, or most of us, are not prima ballerinas. But I think, again, it comes to not only we start the day with a routine that works for us, but also end the day to tell our mind to start to relax and unwind. So that's number 21. 22, let baths be your creative muse. We just heard in the previous one that Anna Pavlova enjoys a bath after her show, but so too did Virginia Woolf. But hers, she would enjoy post-breakfast, so to get the day started. In fact, the book shares baths also played a part in her creative process. So embrace the bath. Here we go. 23, let lunch be a true midday break. Don't rush through this one. If you have any control over your lunch schedule, make it lengthier. At 1 p.m., Hamblin has lunch, takes the Tibetan Terrier Lux for a walk, and switches on the television to satisfy her tennis addiction. So just one example of how to lengthen and enjoy your midday lunch or midday break. Number 24, write when inspiration hits, even if it's in bed in the morning so as not to lose the ideas. There may be mornings where it just hits you. You wake up and you go, boom. Embrace it. Don't feel bad that you're still in bed. Just work. Just get busy. There were a handful of different artists and creatives and writers who would do a lot of their work in bed before they started the day. Now, that's not for everybody because we have to, again, tailor it to ourselves. But I think, again, getting to know yourself, knowing what productivity looks like is important. Number 25, go outside and breathe in the fresh air. Harriet Montagu, who was the first female sociologist, writes, "Fresh air and cold water are my stimulants." So that is what she chooses to do to get herself revved up and wake herself up for the day. Number 26 is enjoy someone's company for tea, lunch, or a regular walk. Emily Post would regularly welcome a guest or two for tea each afternoon. It gives you something to look forward to as well after you've done a lot of your work in the morning, something to kind of switch out of that work mode if you need to turn your brain off and just let yourself relax, and then enjoy social company. 27, it's okay for your personal time to be less than what others feel is acceptable. This is similar to what we talked about earlier, but Eleanor Anton states, it seems to me you have to have your personal life organized so it takes as little of your time as possible. Otherwise, you can't make your art. This is something to certainly remember. If we're trying to accomplish something, or we love doing something that is our work, that's in a creative field of some sort, there's only 24 hours in a day, and we have to sleep for 7 to 9 of them. We have to eat. And if we already have another job outside of the creative pursuit, we have to go to work. So don't feel bad if you dive into what you love doing. You need to make time for it. Make it a priority as best you can. And that, again, there was a lot of quotes like this, but it just was really reaffirming. Following what we love to do is not something to feel bad about. It may not look like anyone else's schedule in your social circle or work circle even, because you do this as a hobby outside of work. That's okay. You've got a circle here on the Simple Sophisticate, sincerely. So just know to trust yourself, listen to yourself, and embrace what you discover. Number 28, don't expect the routine to come naturally. Create one and stick with it as it enables you to flourish. It will take time to get to know yourself. It will take time to figure out what truly makes you become more productive, also makes you open to creative ideas. Just because you don't know what that routine looks like now doesn't mean you won't. I find that every single year, whether it's my school schedule or my school and writing schedule, or in the summer, just my writing schedule, it gets better every year because I'm fine-tuning it. I discover a new way. Maybe it's because I've been introduced to someone. Maybe it's because I am pushed to try to do something I probably wouldn't have done, but because of someone else's schedule changing, I have to do something different. And then I realize, oh, that works really well. There's so many different things if we keep exploring and being curious where we can learn what speaks to us if we're paying attention. So that's number 28. Number 29. This is not for everybody, but I think it's something that a lot of people find as a good release, good outlet. Number 29 is cook and walk. Not at the same time. Don't worry. But cook and walk. This is from Isabel Allende. She states the only other essential component of her day is a twice daily walk with her dog, during which she avoids thinking about her writing project. And in the evening, she makes herself a simple dinner and goes to bed at about 10 or 11 p.m. I don't know about Isabel, but for me, when I cook, I'm focused on the cooking for the most part. I'm relaxed. I enjoy it. So maybe it's not cooking that you love to do. Maybe it's something else you love to do every day or every evening. When I'm walking my dogs, I can listen to a podcast. I can listen to Mother Nature. I don't have a computer in front of me, so I can't work, and it's a good idea to have that break. So something to think about. Cook and walk, or whatever it is that turns your brain off from your work. 30, create space for your ideas to be seen. I want to share 2 quotes from the book on this topic or concept. Hilary Mantel says, open a gap for them. Create a space. Be patient. And Joan Jonas states, I think the way to become inspired is to empty your mind and let things come into your mind. If we clutter it up with all sorts of busy schedules and all sorts of worries and all sorts of ponderings of the past or the future, we aren't present to see what's wanting to introduce itself to us. That's number 30. 31, do you and don't apologize. This is from Marie-Therese Rodette Griffin. Now, she is from the 17th century. She was a major salonaress of the French Enlightenment. And she had quite the life. So here we go. Here's a quote from her. I live here as in Paris. I rise every day at 5 o'clock. I drink my 2 large glasses of hot water. I take my coffee. I write when I am alone, which is rare. I do my hair in company. I dine every day with the king, chez lui, or with him and les seigneurs. I make calls after dinner. I go to the theater. I return to my place at 10 o'clock. I drink my hot water, and I go to bed. Very exact. And definitely, most of us are not dining with a king. And she does mean literally the king of France. So not bad. Not bad. But I think the idea is there's simple things that she's doing in there that we can too. And just be you. If it works for you, it works for you. Don't apologize. Don't feel like, oh, why? I feel bad about doing this because it's not what everyone else is doing. So what? Let them do them. That's cool. You be you. 32. Turn on music paired with your favorite drink to start the day. Grace Hardingen, who is an American painter, stated, I wake about 9, turn on the symphony, and have juice, fruit, and a pot of black coffee. That sounds lovely. 33. Leave evenings open for your social engagements. This is from Edora Welty. In the evening, she would see a friend for dinner or attend another social engagement. But the real key to this perfect writing day, she said, was to know that the following day would be exactly the same. And that's the key to having a ritual. It's something that's productive for what you need it to do, but you sincerely enjoy it. You sincerely enjoy it and look forward to it. That's 33. 34. Last but not least. Be patient until you find what works, then cherish it. This is from novelist Doris Lessing. Trial and error. And then when you've found your needs, what feeds you, what is your instinctive rhythm and routine, then cherish it. Wise words. It does take time, so that is important. Be patient, but it will happen. I hope you've enjoyed this list, and I hope you've found 1 or 2 ideas that you're going to maybe incorporate or try to incorporate, or maybe you heard something as I did with when I read the book and feel more validated or comforted by the fact that, oh, I don't have to worry about apologizing for this. This works for me, and I'm going to keep embracing it and including it in my life. Again, this entire list, and again, I realize this entire list is on the show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 255. And I'll be right back with this week's Petit Plaisir. This week's Petit Plaisir is a very simple, cool soup. It is a chilled cucumber and yogurt soup with dill and fresh mint. And I learned of this recipe when I was cooking this summer at Patricia Wells's cooking school, last summer, I should say. And it was actually, this is a testament to how much I love this recipe. So she gave us 5 days worth of recipes in her little cookbook that we get when we go to class. And there are so many awesome ones, some of which I've shared on the cooking show. This one I have not shared yet, but it was the first recipe that I cooked for myself while I was traveling. So as soon as I left that school, I went to another vacation rental in the Luberon, and I went to the market and I got the ingredients for this soup and made it for my lunch the next day. And then I think I had it for lunch the next day because I had made so much of it. But it was that good, and it was the first one, if that tells you anything. I'm also going to be having it as my second course in my dinner at my dinner party this weekend, because again, it's something that's fresh and simple, but it's also different than your standard fare in the summertime, and it only involves 6 ingredients. So here we go. All you need is either a immersion blender or a food processor. And you're going to give yourself at least an hour's leadway. So you're going to need to chill this for an hour before you serve it. Or you can chill it overnight and put it in the refrigerator overnight, which is what I like to do. So all you need is 1 cucumber, but the cucumber needs to either be European or English. And why we want that is we want fewer seeds and less water. So you want one of those long, thin cucumbers, not the traditional American ones that you see in the stores. But all you need is 1, and it will serve 8 people. So 1, but you trim the ends and peel it, and then slice it very thinly because you're going to plop all of that into the food processor. Then you need 1 teaspoon of sea salt. And be generous with the salt. Do not skimp on that part. It brings forth all the flavor. Then you're going to add 2 cups of Greek-style whole milk yogurt. Go for the whole. It's already a very light dish, so go for the whole. Then you want 1 or 2 garlic cloves. Peel them and have them, but then finely mince them. The food processor will do the rest. Don't worry. But do make sure you're generous with your garlic. At least 1 large one or 2 regular size garlic cloves. This is where now you're going to add your herb garden ingredients. And by the way, last Wednesday, if you haven't stopped by the blog recently, I shared a post on how to have your own herb garden with a list of all the little details that you might need to make sure it's successful. I've always have an herb garden, whether I have other things in my garden or not. The herb garden is a must, and I share more about that on the blog if you want to check it out. But the two herbs you're adding to this are mint and dill, and you want about 1/3 of a cup of each, chopped finely. But again, the food processor will do most of the work. And you won't go too far. So if you have a half a cup, it's not a bad thing. But you actually reserve, I would say, 1/3 of that for each of them for garnishing the soup afterwards. But with the herbs, I would make sure that you have 3 tablespoons of each added to the soup. So 3 tablespoons of finely chopped dill, 3 tablespoons of finely chopped mint. Keep the rest for garnishing afterwards or adding to add more flavor based on taste. Put all of these ingredients in your food processor or in a bowl, and then use an immersion blender, and then mix it up, puree it. And you do want it pureed, so very, very fine. You don't want to have any big chunks or anything like that. Taste it. Make sure it has a flavor you want. And again, I often find that I have to add a little more salt or a few more herbs. And then transfer it into a bowl and chill it for at least an hour. If you're going to chill it overnight, that's totally fine. And then when you serve it, and if you go to, I actually have a video of when we served it in Provence. And you can go find that video. I shared it on my Instagram stories and I saved it. And if you go to my Instagram, The Simply Luxurious Life, and you go to my highlights, my entire French trip is shared 1 through 10. So there's 10 parts. There's 100 pictures or videos on each of these. Go to part 3. And it's about halfway through there. And you will see the actual bowl of soup that we enjoyed on the terrace with Patricia Wells. And you'll see how they serve it. And they just put the soup in a pitcher, a nice milk glass pitcher. And then you just pour the soup into every bowl, and you garnish with a little bit of the chopped dill and mint, and that is it. And it is so refreshing, so simple, so good. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast, where I'll recommend a book, a film, or a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. And you can find that recipe for chilled cucumber and yogurt soup with dill and fresh mint on the show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 255. Before we wrap up, I just want to thank all the listeners who have been doing this for quite some time, and I apologize for not saying something sooner. Thank you for sharing the podcast on Instagram, whether it's on your stories or on Instagram's permanent posts, tagging The Simply Luxurious Life. I find it and I'll put it on my stories. I so enjoy seeing what episodes, number one, you enjoy listening to, but also enjoying how you enjoy the podcast. Some of them were recently shared that they listened while they're settling in for the night, or doing the dishes, or cooking in the evening, or taking their morning walk. So thank you for sharing how you enjoy listening to The Simple Sophisticate. And if you'd like to share with your followers on Instagram, I could tag me and I will be sharing on my stories as well. Wishing you a lovely last few days of the spring or fall season, and may the start of summer or winter start off on a wonderful right or left, whichever one you love stepping forward with, step forward well into the new season. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up my new book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, Making Your Everydays Extraordinary and Discovering Your Best Self. You can also pick up my first book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide, which is available now in paperback, ebook, and audio versions on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes, or wherever books are sold. To stay caught up on the most recent episodes of the podcast, blog posts, my new cooking show, and receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a morning cup of coffee. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée!